down there.
Allie Kino, staff.
Dawn DeSorcy, staff.
Tom Eklund, commission member.
Dennis Pollock, Alderman.
Craig Braun, commission member.
Lee Tall, commission member.
Patrick Getterman, commission member.
We've got Tom Rayom coming in from Zoom Land, commission member, and see Jake just walked in. We're good to go. I'm gonna call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the approve the meeting minutes from the May 9th meeting. What are your wishes?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Who was that? I'm sorry. We have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Passed. Update on the skate park. Is that Jake?
Chief Pesky was going to talk a little bit about kind of the situation that we've been having there probably since last Friday, pretty much the day school got out. Just their protocol that they've been doing since we have been catching the kids on video camera, and I guess going forward what we're going to be doing.
We were able to catch the last two kids that did the vandalism in the park, and luckily they were caught on camera, so that is the reason why we caught them, and we are familiar with the kids. So when we saw them on video, we knew who they were. It's very difficult for us to monitor continuously. We're there as much as we can. We get called there quite a bit also. So we are trying to monitor as much as we can. And it seems like these kids are doing this right in the middle of the day, which is very uncommon, very unusual. So we're going to continue to monitor the cameras, give it as much extra patrol as we can, get officers there as much as we can. But it's just a tough thing, and I don't know why they're, like I said, right in the middle of the day, and that's our busiest time. So we have multiple calls that we're attending to. And we try to run through the area. As soon as they see us, they're gone. They know as soon as the squad pulls up, everyone in that park knows that we're there. So the big thing is the cameras. The cameras have helped us hugely in apprehending these kids that are doing the damage. Do you have any questions for me? It's a tough situation. I don't know how we combat it.
Have we, I know we attempted to recoup some of the from parents and such. And
Okay, yes.
where are we at on that?
So the two kids that we identified, one was referred to Human Services and the other one was issued a citation. It all depends on if they have a continual contact with Human Services. Basically, it's a building process. So the more they get in trouble, the more sanctions are put against them. And the one kid that was issued the citation, we can go for restitution. So basically, we get a bill. I asked for a bill of how much it costs for the city's time, materials to clean up the graffiti, and we can charge, the judge can order restitution and have that child pay that, to pay for the damages that he caused. So as long as we can catch them, we can get the money out of them. It's just be able to catch them.
So I don't know if everybody knows, they actually, what was it? It was 4:55, so we were actually there. That was the day of the dry run.
Oh,
We were actually in the pool while they were vandalizing the tables outside. That ended at 5, so we were still there, and Dawn was still, Jake was still there, I believe.
if anybody's got any ideas, we're ready to listen. Like I said, we're there as much as we can be there. And like I said, thank God for the cameras, because that's how we're catching these kids.
So if you issue a citation to a kid, does it ultimately fall to their parent if they're a minor to make those payments or to arrange some sort of a plan? How does that work?
Not necessarily. The judge can order them to, but a lot of times they don't. They hold it till they turn 18. One of the kids in question has multiple citations that are hanging over his head. So when he turns 18, when he gets his first tax return, he's going to owe us a lot of money. And we recoup the money once they turn 18.
Oh, gotcha. You can withhold licenses too, or is that a judge's call? Driver's licenses?
That's a judge's call.
Okay. Yeah, I would concur. In my line of work, we are seeing increasingly extreme behaviors as well as struggling with the same issue of what exactly do you do.
Right.
The fact that you have a kid with multiple citations tends to indicate that citations probably don't work super good. You know what I'm saying? And that's not on law enforcement. You guys do a great job. I have been in this community for 5 years, and any time I've needed law enforcement assistance, involvement, cooperation, collaboration, and everything, it's always top-notch here in Grand Rapids, and with Wood County. But that's, so I'm not disparaging law enforcement, but that's an excellent question, a societal question. So, like, what do you do?
Right.
We have the same problem. Our biggest, discipline thing that we can do in a school is or in a district is kick a kid out of school. What good does that do if they're 12 years old or 11 years old or 13? It would, allows more vandalism in the skate park to happen, one would argue, or more things. This is a problem. This is absolutely a problem, and it's not just this community. And to me, I have a lot of reasons why I think it's happening. I also have a lot of reasons I think it would change, but it doesn't have to do with getting kicked out of school, nor does it have to do with getting a citation from law enforcement. It has to do with other things that we should value as a community. But that's my 2 cents. I appreciate the work you guys do. You guys do an outstanding job. And I share that same concern. What do we do? What is a reasonable consequence, or how do we get kids to change their behavior, particularly this extreme stuff? Vandalizing something middle of the broad daylight, and there's cameras there, and you're going to get busted, probably.
Right.
And I got however many citations prior, clearly. Well, that's not changing my behavior. And so getting kicked out of school probably isn't a strong consequence either. So I don't know. I don't have any advice or anything, but just to say that I share that concern, Chief, and I'm very appreciative of what you guys do. Many years ago, well, okay, it shouldn't be many because it's been 5, but within the last 5 years, I remember Eric Dobbin, who's one of your detectives currently, he was our SRO, met with kids because we were having similar issues. I don't think it was broad daylight stuff, but it was skate park vandalism stuff, or them, kids just making poor choices over their bathrooms, I think was the deal.
Yep.
Then, and he met with a group of kids at Rams and Lincoln, and following that, of course, the behavior changed for a period of time, because there was a conversation along the commission at that time as well. And then, of course, as we've had some bumps in the road as time progressed. And I don't know what Eric had a conversation with him about, or I wasn't present, but I know it was commentary about, like, hey, if you want to use it, you guys have to hold each other accountable, because otherwise it's not going to be something you're able to do. So it kind of stemmed from that. And then there were some changes. I want to say, though, I'd have to talk to Eric because it was when he was still a school resource officer. So at least 4 years ago, I think, 3.5 maybe at the very least. And I don't know if a conversation along those same lines would do us any good currently, keeping in mind that it's not always just, WRPS, Rams, or Lincoln kids. There's kids from other communities that come here and other schools and so forth. But at the time, that did work. It was effective, and apparently maybe that's something we could look at. Our access to kids, of course, when it's summertime is, next to zero unless they're in summer school. But we could talk with our SROs about having a conversation again come September and see if that makes a difference. Doesn't do much for the rest of June, July, and August, however.
I guess we could reach out and try to have a meeting with parents that take their children there. Kind of explain to them what's going on. And if they're in that area and they see any kids that are troublemakers, to let us know. That would be an option. Try and get some help from the parents that are bringing their kids there. Because we hate to close the park for the good kids, because the bad kids are being bad. It's not fair to them. But we also have to be able to maintain it and clean it when it does get vandalized.
That's the other thing that came to mind, because when Chief Blevins was still here, the conversation that was had with the commission, was whose authority under which it was shut down. You guys remember that? And the commentary, I think, from the commission at the time was if the chief of police decides that it needs to be shut down, because there was issues with officer safety for the gentleman that responded. And if the chief decides it needs to be shut down for whatever reason, then I think it's shut down. And you're correct. You can't use something, the people that use it properly, which admittedly is the vast majority of the population.
Right.
Whatever that is, 90+%, maybe even 98+%. But then we're impacting everybody else because of the actions of a very few. But what other choice do you have? Assign law enforcement one officer, we're gonna pay one officer to stand there and stare at the skate park for, 10, 12 hours a day? That's insanity. But we shouldn't have to, one would argue.
Right, and we do ban the kids once we know who they are. Once we go through a process, they get banned from the park for that year. But the problem with that is they've already done something, and that's why we're banning it. So we're not taking care of the problem, we're kind of following it up.
So is it open again now?
Yes,
It did shut down there for
I don't know how long, a day?
just a day? Okay.
So when you ban a kid, who controls that? I mean,
It would have to be, basically when officers show up, if we see them there, we would issue them another citation for trespassing.
but you don't have one in there every day.
No, we don't. Yeah, it's not monitored by anybody.
Yeah, yeah.
Anything else?
Thank you. Jake, I know we didn't put it specifically on the agenda, but you want to elaborate a little bit about the fencing we were talking about?
I think we do have that on the
Where'd I
agenda,
miss it?
Dean. Yep. Which number is it?
Oh, discussing on fencing, never mind,
Yeah,
sorry.
it's on there.
Duh, read right over it. I was thinking that's along the same lines, okay. Update on opening week.
So Dean, as you mentioned, we did have our soft opening or dry run on June 3rd. We had a pretty good turnout for that. Our admissions staff was able to check in people using a test database for software. The guards were able to practice the rotations. We sold concessions. Ended up being a pretty nice day, and we had some people who did violate some rules and get in some trouble. So that was the reason for the practice, was to kind of test the employees and give them some of the things that happen on a daily basis there. So I think that went well. We opened on June 7th. It was cool out. We were prepared for a huge group of people to come in, and because it was 72 degrees, it really wasn't as busy as we expected, which was okay because the staff was able to learn how to do things in the software, and just the process of checking people in and things. Then we closed on Wednesday because of the rain, and we attempted to open on Saturday and closed after 2 hours because of the rain and the cool temperatures. So, and today we were also closed, so we're not doing great on the weather front this year so far. For the first week, I did a comparison between last year and this year, but the temperature was hugely different last year than it was this year. So, this year we sold in the first week we've sold 638 day passes. 156 of those resident, 418 non-resident. Guardian passes, 39 resident and 25 non-resident, and then we sold 39 punch cards. To compare that to last year, 638 this year for the day passes, 2,859 last year in that first week. But I think it was like 90 some degrees last year. We've had a lot of reservations for cabanas, and the family area shelter, the party packages. We've had a lot of people interested in those and setting them up, a lot more than last summer. Other than that, I think things are going well. It's been, we're expecting a pretty busy day tomorrow. It's supposed to be 95 and humid, so. Do you have any questions? I don't know if Jake, do you want to say anything?
No, just the weather hasn't been cooperating, but so far it's been going well.
My prim and proper grandson visiting from England was so proud of the fact that he got to break 8 rules. And I played it drunk in the pool.
There were a lot of Band-Aids too on your family.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they said no wear Band-Aids. So we
Band-Aids.
all showed up wearing Band-Aids. It was kind of. Okay, now we'll move on to the discussion of the fencing.
Yeah, this is just a thought on, since we've had so much vandalism up at that open air pavilion, on the north side of the Aquatic Center next to the playground. So far, since we've been open, the last 3 years, we've probably put in about $18,000 worth of fixing damaged lights, picnic tables. We have a panel that needs replacing, and then graffiti removal, and then I don't even have on there the amount of hours that we spend there picking garbage and litter up on a daily basis. So I brought Dean over there when we had that dry run, just to kind of show him what I'm proposing on just fencing off that pavilion and tying it into the Aquatic Center. So basically, it would be an 8-foot fence going around the pavilion. We would give keys to people who would like to rent it still. Key deposit, they come to the office, get a key, and then that pavilion is theirs. We would have to add 3 gates, so a gate to the parking lot, and then a gate to the playground, and then a gate to the actual aquatic center. So companies wanted to rent it out, they could have the whole pavilion for like a family picnic and stuff like that. So American Fencing did give me a couple different price quotes for that area. So if we were to do it the same fencing as the whole park, just that 8-foot galvanized fencing, it was like just under $15,000 with 3 gates. And then if we wanted to do like a decorative fencing, we're looking up towards, for a 6-foot fence, it was $14,000, and an 8-foot fence was $29,000. We're just to the point where we don't know what else to do, keeping these kids out of there, destroying everything. So
Are there cameras there?
there are. Yep, this is how we've caught. But it's like, when do we get to the point we catch them, but they're still doing the damage? You know.
So if you have fencing, assuming they enter appropriately, you know who's in there?
Right. Yep. Yep. You know, it's just, and it's also sad because families go there. You know, they have dinner there. The kids play in the splash pad and in the playground. So it just kind of stinks that this is where it's kind of come down to, is doing something like this. We'd have to pour some concrete from the concrete pad to the pavilion to inside the aquatic center, so that's going to cost money. Probably about 20 feet worth of concrete. Yeah, so I don't know what your thoughts are on doing something drastic like this, but like I said, I got the numbers and the amount of money that we've already put into replacing things that have been broken. We did get some restitution for the picnic tables. It was about $8,300 worth of damage, and we got $1,300 back for that.
8,300, yeah?
Yep. That's with our fabricator hours, because we did some fabricating for the tables so they can't bend them anymore. But again, it's sad because we see families there eating supper, and if we do something like this, they won't be able to do that without not renting the pavilion.
So what you're indicating is the pavilion and the playground area?
No, just around the pavilion.
Okay. Yeah, there's people there pretty much every time I
Yep.
go by.
Yep.
It's a shame. Tough call.
Yeah.
It's the whole aspect of it is going to be completely different.
Mm-hmm.
It's not- I mean, sitting in a fenced-in area having a family picnic
Right, yeah.
or a community
Mhm.
event.
Has there been like any outreach, because is the opinion that the community at large kind of knows that this stuff is going on?
I think so. I think it's very, publicly known, especially on Facebook.
You think so?
I think so. Yep. Yeah, Channel 7 came in last week and they did a little article on it.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. I mean, otherwise, we just try it.
Thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, just in a general sense, we have a lot of facilities too, and some of them are fenced and we disallow access unless somebody's renting or leasing. But by and large, if people are on school property doing normal things, there's no reason they can't be. I mean, that's the whole point to public property. And when you talk about parks, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, here's a pavilion, really nice pavilion that's got some tables. You can stop at one of the local restaurants, get something to go, and bring it over there and sit with your kids. You know what I'm saying? It's a perfect place to do that. And then you take that off the table because there's a couple of idiots in town that can't figure out how to act like human beings,
Yeah.
I don't know. I struggle with that significantly because I think people, a fenced pavilion is not going to be used to the extent that just an open pavilion would be.
Right. Yep.
But then also I recognize that again, this is not just my opinion. I'm speaking only from my perspective, and the commission can decide what they want to do. But the idea that people go in there and ruin it for everybody else, yeah. I mean, again, we live that every day in the schools too. So I don't know what that balance is. You want to have a community for your best aspects of your community, not your worst. But sometimes you're forced into, these tougher decisions because, again, you think that the city can keep forking out 8-10 grand every time kids want to act like idiots? I mean, I know we wouldn't.
Right.
And so, I don't know. I don't even, if this was called as a question, I don't know how I would vote, to be honest with you right now.
So, Jake, in terms of the reinforcement of the table, what, are they all reinforced now, or?
Yeah, yep. So basically we have, I think, 7 handicapped tables up there. So obviously the ends butt out a little bit longer than a normal table just for wheelchairs to go under. We just put bars underneath to connect to the bottom, and they're not going to be able to bend anymore. But they're all cut off and defaced and scratched up, and just from.
So basically, I mean, it's still trash. It's not
Yeah,
random.
just not bend up. Yeah. So I don't know if we give it a couple more weeks and talk about it again in the next meeting about this, but
Anybody else? Lee?
Well, Jake, I have a question. Have you looked into like other communities, they've had probably the same problems because like people are saying we're not unique by any means. But have you heard anything through other counterparts in your industry
No.
on nothing?
no.
Yeah, because I kind of agree with, I'm not sure what to do, how to vote to, fence off a public,
Right.
asset that I live across the street from.
Yeah.
So it's tough.
Yeah. Again, we don't want to take it away from the community, but I don't know.
It's just, I'm just wondering, I kind of agree with Greg in the sense that I just wonder how attractive it's going to be as a,
Oh, it's not. It's going to be hurt.
are we going to lose, we're going to lose rentals, I would
I don't know. It's hard to say, but yeah, it's not going to look nice.
say. Is it rented at all right now, or
I think it's been rented the last 4 weekends. Yeah.
any appointments are upcoming, or?
I haven't looked 3 so far.
Almost always a weekend.
Usually, typically, yep.
So if they had a party in there, the kids would have to exit through a gate to go on the playground, correct? That's part of the allure, is to have it there next to the playground.
Right, in the grass area.
So that would,
Yep. So there'd be a gate facing the parking lot and a gate facing the playground.
you could leave it open, is it like just a 4-foot wide gate, or would it be a
I have
larger
to
gate,
look. I
just
think
to
there's
have
6.
access and view, I guess?
I think they're 6 foot.
6-foot gate.
It's it's whatever the width of the sidewalk is, and I think it was 6 feet.
I'm not, what you said about putting it off or waiting and see, and I don't necessarily feel like I want to jeopardize the potential of our assets, but by the same token, seems like we're making a little bit of headway in terms of catching people, but
Right.
maybe we ought to sit on it for a little bit. I'm not sure. That's my thought.
Well, I think the question is if we sit on it and now, let's say another event happens, then what are you gonna do?
Mhm.
So,
Well-
I mean, is that the trigger or what?
Another thing is if we keep fencing in these public places for people to enjoy, where do we stop? You know, when do we stop? And is it really accessible to everybody then, you know? They have to understand that it's their tax dollars that are building these places, and if they don't help take care of it, then doesn't matter what we do, even if we put fences on there, it's still gonna get vandalized, you know? It's gonna prevent it a little bit, but in the end, if they wanna do it, they can still do it. And there is really no solution to this problem, and it's the same thing with the skate park, you know? At what time do we say enough's enough, and then we just say, forget it, let's not build anything new anymore because we can't take care of it? There's no crystal ball, guys. I don't know what we can do unless everybody just start acting up, you know, helping out.
Aside from a neighborhood watch group of volunteers hanging out there.
Yeah.
We do have cameras out there, right?
Yep, correct. Yep.
Do we just say, put up a sign that says, smile, you're on camera, you will be
Yep.
caught?
We're putting one up tomorrow.
Because I think that's the only other thing that would deter them.
Right.
Is they know that there's camera, and they will be
Yeah.
caught. Yeah.
Yep. Mhm.
So what's the protocol like with areas that have cameras? So skate park or this pavilion area, somebody from the city, I assume, goes over there, like dump trash cans or mow a lawn or whatever, and then looks at stuff and is like, oh crap, something else happened. So then they notify you and law enforcement, and then we review the video, try to identify what happened when.
Yep.
And is that once a day, twice a week? I mean, how frequently do we think?
Since last Friday, it's been, I don't know, it's been 3 incidences, so it's,
3 incidences from Friday to today.
last Friday.
Oh, so a
The-
week,
the
a week and a
Friday-
few days.
Yeah,
Okay.
the Friday they got out of school,
Oh, gotcha.
yeah. But it's also been caused catching boys in the girls' bathroom, you know, that happened twice already, stuff like that. It's hard to say how many times we call them about that, but it's been, I think, 7 times so far, but 2 of the last 3 times have been for graffiti that we've noticed in the middle of the day.
Spray paint, are we talking? Or?
Yep, spray paint, yeah.
So like how frequently then, you know what I'm saying? How often are we reviewing the video after an event, or how do we know, are we notified in some capacity within, say, 24 hours or, I don't know. Do you know, oh my gosh, do you know any ballpark on that?
No, typically we only look at the video or call the police if So we see something, if we notice something.
But it's not like we're sending city workers around every park to look for
No.
vandalism every day,
No,
right? So it's
No.
just people that happen to be there for whatever reason and then notice something?
correct, yep.
So can this be like a week later and somebody's got to review 5 days worth of video?
Yeah, could be, yeah, yep. Yep, which
My
takes
God.
time. I mean, lucky enough, the last couple of times, it's very obvious, because they did it in the areas that, well, this wasn't there yesterday, so it was kind of easy to tell. Like, well, it must have happened last night, or whatnot, but, yeah, there's small things that we don't catch right away.
Jake, has it ever been the community calling you guys, like a neighbor, or is it always just, hey, a employee has seen it, cameras?
Yeah,
So no one's ever said, hey, they're
one-
they've called the cops, or maybe you can answer that. Has like a community member called in about vandalism, or has it always kind of been triggered by park staff?
Pause at the office. Mm-mm.
Because it's the most valuable. I mean, it's the most. Well, the other thing I was thinking too is if we put a fence around that particular thing, the playground right next to it's not fenced.
Right, and then,
And it just makes tearing the slide apart
yeah,
real attractive. I mean, it's kind of like what Lee said, where do you stop?
And as much as I'd like to stop any, thing from happening, like, so we don't do something, something happens tonight, I'm coming with Dean at this point in time. I'd rather just try to hold out, and perhaps we've caught a few of the key subjects. I don't know, but I guess at this point in time, I just, like I said, I see so many families there
oh, yeah.
all night,
Yep.
every night, and it'd be tough to have them not be able to utilize that, because the next park to go to, is perhaps the school, and if we do fence it off, or we do make it, inaccessible for vandals, that they'll go somewhere else. They'll go to House School, or they'll go somewhere else, I firmly believe. So it's I'm not saying we want to attract them there, but at least we have cameras, we can try to stop what we can.
I think even if you wanted to shut the skate park down, they'll just go somewhere else and do the same thing. So, to me, that's not the answer either, so. Yeah, it's a tough one.
Well, we monitor then.
Okay.
I don't have to see anybody in motion to do anything on it, so. That's a shame. Move on to item 6 is update on safety items for the corp. Thanks, Chief.
So just after going through, I think we talked about this a couple months ago, I just put in more prioritizing things that kind of stuck out more than others. A lot of it is resurfacing things, like if it's the basketball courts at Sandlock, those are all cracked, really not the nicest courts in the world. Another thing was the zoo path that goes throughout the zoo. We have a lot of tripping hazards in there, just from the years and years of those oak trees getting larger and the roots pushing up the asphalt. Hasn't happened to my knowledge, but you know, someone could easily trip in there. The 2 tennis courts, one at Ward Johnson Park, is in desperate need of repair, or if we decide to remove it and do something else there. And then we've had this discussion before about the Mead court, tennis courts. They're pretty much unplayable. A lot of the safety pads underneath the playgrounds and the swing sets are no longer in existence anymore. And then a lot of the pavilions, for instance, at Bulls Creek, the zoo, and then Lions, there's no handicap accessible sidewalk to get down to any of these pavilions from the parking lots. So if a person wanted to come there who was disabled, they would have really no way of getting to the pavilion. And then the skate park, we have a lot of the rubber surface that is breaking up. That kind of, they're like the main platforms that the bikes go and skates go on. But those are not cheap by any means. I think $800 for a sheet of 8x8 of this material. So those were like the main safety concerns that I had. Obviously, if a safety concern comes up, we do fix it right away if it's something that we can fix. But going through the CORP, these are also some of the main things that they recommended at some of these parks. So a lot of it, like I said, is just resurfacing the stuff that we have.
So are we gonna consider these for the next budget, or how do you see us?
I would love, I mean, the main thing for me would be definitely the zoo surface. Just the amount of people that we get walking through there on a daily basis, and obviously it's only going to get worse. The trees are going to get bigger, and the asphalt's just going to keep cracking and cracking. So yeah, I think this is something we could put in for next year's budget.
So what's the fix, though? I mean, you're not gonna get rid of the tree.
No. Right, no.
So,
Well, this is probably the original asphalt that's been in there for whenever the zoo was built, so
well,
I think like
it's been quite a while.
yeah, like anything else, you just fix it and hope it lasts longer than the first time. I mean, there are some oak trees that are kind of ending their life expectancy, so there are probably some that we could remove here and there, but we really don't want to do that because it does give a lot of the animals shade. You know, with the handicap accessible paths, this is something that we could do in-house, obviously. It'd be a nice fall project for our Parks and Street to collaborate on. You know, we're not looking more than, you know, probably 60 feet of concrete, so it's not a huge budget breaker.
Yeah. Well, for me, I'd like to see what you would like to put in the budget and what's practical to get done in that year for us to consider and say it goes in, or is there something else that should be bumped up?
Okay.
So I'm not that familiar with the handicap stuff, but in my mind, I say, well, that's something we should do. I mean, so.
Okay.
But if you could prioritize what you think could get done next year and what that estimate of cost is.
Okay.
And then there's always the option, I suppose, to contract stuff out if you want to do more.
Right, yeah.
So you got to kind of keep chipping away at it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to go away.
No, not going to fix itself, so, okay.
Well, that's just me talking, so.
I would agree, the kind of prioritization, and that's kind of what I thought we were going to get eventually. It's not, you had 3 items that you just disclosed there. I'm sure there's other stuff. But we talked about rank ordering safety at the parks first, followed by other general improvements over time or repairs. And then have some ability to identify, because, I mean, yeah, if you're going to play tennis on the Mead courts, clearly there's a significant safety hazard, but if they're not playable, as anybody playing tennis over there, I'm inclined to think the answer is no, so then is it technically a safety hazard? You know what I mean?
Yep.
And redoing tennis courts is costly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not going to be a cheap price tag.
No, and especially with the new courts that we've made over at Witter. Lincoln High School has newer courts, Rams have newer courts. To me, it'd be kind of foolish just to put in money to fix the Mead tennis courts at this point. I mean,
I wonder about more pickleball, though.
That's what I,
Yeah,
that's
that'd
what I
be-
would have said. So if you're gonna do it, do you make it
into,
both or
Yep.
just pickleball, or what do you do?
yeah. I
Is
would,
Mead 2 courts?
Was
4.
4,
It's 4. Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Because you could easily then do
2 and
2, keep
Yep.
2 tennis courts and do quite a
Yep.
few pickleball courts,
Yeah.
actually.
I would just replicate the same thing we did at Witter and just put it at Mead.
Do you remember the price tag of that, Jake?
No, I don't. I think we talked about that the last meeting. I can bring up my notes from the last meeting. Because I did get American Fencing reach out to me with their price quote on the fencing. Current Technologies gave me a price quote on the lights. I think the only price quote I was waiting for was American Asphalt, because they're the ones that did all the ceiling and the asphalt over at the Whitterfield ones. My memory serves me right. I think it was like 250,000 or something like that.
Okay.
Is there any pickleball on the west side today?
No,
I don't think so.
no.
But
I mean-
yeah, if you want to revisit what, compared to what was it Witter, just give us
Yep.
an idea. Next meeting on that.
Yep, I know I have those numbers, so it'll be, yep, I can do that for sure.
But I
It- Did you, sorry, Dean, did you say you had a number on the path redo at the zoo too?
No, I would have no, I mean, I'd probably have to bring American Asphalt to come in there and look at that, and that'd be
Okay.
quite the project.
Yeah,
I
that wouldn't be
think.
cheap either.
No,
Okay.
And that's maintenance, not Pesky money.
correct, yep, that would not be Tusky money.
We'll get another update then on that.
Yep.
The next one, okay. Go to 7, which is update on the park outlay.
All right, so, the 3 items that you guys approved from last year for the park outlay money, the auto locks at Sandlot, the zoo, and Lions Park have not been installed yet. We're still waiting for Lee doors or Lee work doors to get everything in for that. Obviously, the garbage cans have been ordered and they're already out on site, and we're still waiting for a couple parts from the kayaks still. We ordered this back last September and we're still waiting for items on there. So subtracting all those 3 things, park outlay money is sitting at $285,000. That also includes the room tax. The room tax from last year was $55,000, which is carried over into the revised budget of the park outlay. So the park outlay and the room tax is one big number.
Is it 55K on the room tax?
Yep.
Something doesn't sound right to me, because there was like 250 in room tax money in the fund. So is the 55 just what you had
That's-
earmarked for this 1 year, or? I don't-
55 was what we got from 2021 from the room tax, and then that's
Just for that year?
Yep, just
So
for that
there's
year.
this other fund, though, that still exists?
The park outlay. Yep. So that
No,
room,
no, room tax.
that I don't know.
Somebody gave us a few meetings ago an update on what was in there. And it was like 250.
The numbers that I have, and Tim gave me them, it was, so like, for instance, the room tax from 2020 was 70,000. That went into the park outlay. And then 2021 was $45,000. That also went into the park outlay. So I think each year, when we get that room tax, that just goes into the park outlay.
Well, we have to figure that out because
It's just the
my
carryover.
head says we haven't been spending all of that and this fund has been building.
Okay. I
Do you
can look.
remember that, Don, when, I mean, somebody gave us, I'd probably go back in my notes, but somebody gave us an accounting and there was like $250,000 in there. So I know we get it every year.
Mhm.
I don't know that we spend it every year.
Right. Right, yeah. Mhm. Yeah, according to what Tim gave me, we have 305, including the room tax.
I think 305 is the room tax.
Okay. I can confirm with that.
I think we need
but-
to, because I'm
okay.
confused on what that is.
Okay.
So like, when we do the budget, somebody has to decide if that's, if any of that comes from room tax money. I think you have to earmark it. Is that correct? I think that's correct. Otherwise it's just out of the normal operating
Mhm.
fund. Well, we have to figure it out because it's important for item number 9.
Right.
Because I'm thinking this money's sitting there and we're not saying certain projects should be coming from
Mhm.
that fund.
Well, there's nothing else that can be spent on, correct?
Yeah, to my knowledge,
I mean, that's the carve-out is for parks.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
but I think it just goes into this pot until we say it's going to be used for this, this, and this.
Yeah, so your question is, how much is in there and how many years is it built over?
Right.
Or have we spent it each year?
Right.
Want to clear that, revisit that with Tim?
Yep.
And Don, if you could send out after, find out with Tim, if you could send out an email, we'll respond on that. That'd be great. Update on the Pesky budget then?
Yep, I also got this from Tim. It's still at $311,000. We are still just deciding on what we would like to do with that, amount of money at the zoo.
And that's other committees meeting to talk about
Correct,
that,
yep,
right?
yep. I think Chris was not able to make the
Yeah, she's
meeting.
not-
Yeah,
She mentioned that she was
Right.
going to.
Yep.
she
I know we
couldn't be
did.
Here today, but she was gonna put
Yep.
together some ideas.
so that number hasn't changed in a couple years now, the amount that's in there.
And when does that have to be spent by again? Remind me,
2025.
25.
Yep.
Now we're back onto the room tax money.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that was my item I asked.
Yep.
So I just want to understand how it works. So in my mind, you have various groups, whatever they are, that have events throughout the year that really are the driving force behind some of the room tax money. people come in for tournaments or what have you. And I don't think they ever get a dime back from that for the things that they do. So I don't really know if there's a rule for that or how it works, but, you know, if you could have a program run where it's funded by some of the room tax, it could be a soccer event, it could be, you know, any sports type event that attracts people to come here and stay.
Mhm.
So it just seems to me there should be some of that money going back to those organizations to fund whatever. But I don't know what the rules are, if there are any, or if there's a restriction or what. But they're the ones helping drive some of that funding, yet we don't ever give them any of that money back for their program. So that's why I put it on there. I just,
Right.
and I mean, I'm a little selfish, I think, of the recreation center. So you have, you know, the hockey group, you have the figure skating group, and you have public skating. So, you know, should there be a budgeted amount that goes back to them to do some of their events? And I know as soon as you open that gate, well, then you have other groups that would want the same thing. So, and that's okay. You could alternate them or do whatever you want, but they're just, in my mind, helping bring some of that money to the city. So
So example would be if we use some of the park outlay money to build another pickleball court, like on the west side, and if we held tournaments there and stuff, you're saying like that room tax money from people coming out of town, staying in Rapids for the tournament, you'd want to see that money kind of go back to like a pickleball organization, or?
you'll never know how much
Right.
room tax they bring in. And I don't know if it has to be a capital item or can it be a program
Mm-hmm.
item that, you know, that's run through the city. Yeah, but you'll never know who's really, what event is driving how much money. I mean, that would be probably hard to do. And it's not all sporting events. I mean, there's other things going on that, you know, that contribute to that fund. I think when this all first started, there was the, I don't know, it was Park and Rec or the council, that people would come in and say, here's my pitch for how much of that room tax money I want to get. And I mean, it was an administrative nightmare, I think, because everybody wanted a piece of the pie. But I don't even know what we're spending it on now, because like I said, in my mind, this fund is growing and it's not being spent on anything. So again, it's sort of what's the fund? Are there rules? And then if we were going to do something, there's some prioritization again. But I would have no trouble saying, you know, if we have some big project coming, well, that's a good use for the room tax money. I don't think we even know. I don't know how you use it or when you use it. So,
Okay. And then there's the aspect of the Convention and Visitors Bureau as well, right?
well, they get their own cut. I
Yeah.
mean, that's besides.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
so that's separate.
I'm just talking about the portion that
Yeah.
Park and Rec gets.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, if we can get a breakdown of that, how that works.
I just don't know how, yeah, I don't know how it works.
Okay, under the bills, anything on there?
Make a motion to approve the bills as shown.
A motion? Second? Do I have a second on this?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Motion and a second to approve the bills. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? Motion passes. Back to that corner for a staff report.
Okay, I can give an update on some of the rec activities and the aquatics, just some of the things that we've been doing there. So I started an online schedule for the staff. Last summer, we did have that in admissions and concessions with real-time updates. It was in the form of a spreadsheet with a calendar. But now with everybody on the schedule, we had to find something that we could all use. So now it's lifeguards, it's admissions, concessions, attendance, and it's working quite well so far. They can view the current schedule, see open shifts, request time off, and then I can message the staff very easily. I've actually started to implement it for some of the rec programs as well, because I can post things that we need somebody to work for, and people can grab the shifts if they're available. So that's been working well so far. It's called Home Base. Recreation programming, we were going to be starting t-ball tonight and pitch ball, but with the weather, we did decide to cancel it. There are a lot of classes coming up, babysitting, some art classes, senior splash, rock painting, let me see here. Golf lessons, we're having Sand Valley interns do the instructing. We've got some, quite a few people signed up for those classes. And then Aqua Zumba, which is completely filled up, and Swim 101 and 102, water walking, Senior Splash, also another one that's filled up, that's taught by Joan from the Lowell Center. Got a lot of things up, coming up for the summer. And I think that's everything. Any questions?
Not related to what you just shared, Don, but where are we at with hiring a new Mary?
We awarded the job to Dawn.
That's what we're doing?
That was on my staff report. He took it from me.
Well, we're going to talk about when we get to your report? And Dawn gets to do it? Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a reasonable question. We're listening to that report, so.
I had the same question with that. Makes you feel better.
Should have probably had Jake go first.
Yeah. Tim is online if we wanted to ask him about the room tax money.
Yeah, I was just
and
gonna see it. I
park
saw Tim was on there
valet.
if we want to backtrack.
Tim, can you hear us?
Tim, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Yep.
So we've had some discussions about different items around room tax money.
Can you excuse me? I just have to mute the TV because there's a lag. Okay, I'm sorry. I just had to, I was listening to the meeting on the TV and there's a lag between my computer and that. So I understand there's some questions about the room tax and the park outlay.
Yeah, so I don't remember when, in my mind, and I could be wrong, but I thought there's an accumulation of, I'll say, unused room tax money from previous years, and in the previous reports, I thought it was around $250,000 of unspent room tax money that was allocated to Park and Rec.
correct.
So
So just, oh, okay, sorry.
the question is sort of how it works. So I think unless the commission says in the, say, the upcoming budget year, they could say, well, we're going to do this project or do this, whatever, and that should be earmarked from the room tax. Otherwise, I don't believe it gets spent unless there's an item there that we say is directly coming from there. I think we're not sure how it works. Let's put it that way.
Okay, so you're correct. It's many years ago, there was a decision made that if you recall, room tax, different organizations would come in and request funding,
Right.
for specific events and things like that. And I forget how many years ago, but it's a lot of years ago.
Yep.
That the council passed an ordinance that says that, by state statute, 70% of all room tax has to go to tourism, which we allocate to the Wisconsin Rapids Convention Bureau. The remaining 30%, 18.75% goes to park outlay to fund the park outlay. And that's what goes to fund the outlay. That's at the discretion of the commission. And then the other 11.25%, I hope that adds up to 30, goes to economic development. So each year, what we do is we budget what I estimate is what we're going to get in room tax, and that gets added to the park outlay, 18.75% of that. What's ever not spent is always carried forward. Every year I do a carryover resolution, usually in April, sometimes March. So whatever's unspent stays in that account. It's a designated room tax account. So whatever that room tax was designated for, it stays in there, and it cannot be changed or used for any other purpose unless the council would change the ordinance or, vote to do something different with it. So just to give you a historical perspective, in fiscal 2020, we budgeted $70,000. That was the estimate was going there. We carried over $198,000. We spent $18,000, so we had $250,000. That was 2020. Fiscal year 2021, we budgeted $45,000. That was our estimate of what was going to be allocated in room tax. We carried over $265,000, and the reason for that difference is because what we budget, what we actually get in for room tax, I'll square it up. So if we get more than the allocated amount or what I estimate to be, you get that allocation. So that's the difference between the original budget and transfers in. So fiscal year 2021, we had an available balance left over $242,000. This year, we carried over $249,000 because we got a little bit extra in 2021 than it was anticipated in the original budget. So we had right now, I'm anticipating 2022 that our 18.75% of that room tax will be $55,875. Carried over $249,251. So, and we've spent roughly $4,500. So, currently existing account is about $300,646.
Yeah, that's the sheet. That's the sheet.
Whatever's unspent, always carried forward, kept in that account. It doesn't get transferred to any other account.
Yeah. So it's up to the commission, if I understand right, to say, probably during the budget time, that we're going to spend so much of the room tax money on maybe this capital project. Say we're going to do the pickleball courts at Mead or something. Or what I was talking about earlier is there's quite a few programs outside of the city that attract people to come to town that create this room tax money. Kind of back to the old days that you were talking about where everybody came in and wanted some money, and I'm sure it was an administrative nightmare, but are there restrictions around the commission earmarking any of those dollars to go back to those programs that help generate this fund? And I don't think.
Well, I mean, I guess I would say from a budgetary standpoint, the ordinance says it goes to park outlay. So it would have to be something that's in line with what the city would spend on park outlay. Don't forget that 70% goes to the Visitors and Conventions Bureau. So that's where the bulk of the room tax generated is going to that organization. So I'm not saying it can't be, but I think it has to be in line with what would be an appropriate city expenditure on a park outlay.
Yeah, I'm only talking about the portion that comes to Park and Rec. So if we have $300,000 in by this year, I mean, we could say X goes this place, X goes this place, X goes this place, if we wanted to. Well, that's, what's the definition of park outlay? The current operating expenses and/or capital items?
I would think that in park outlay, usually it's for capital expenditures. And we just went through this, the city went through this exercise of having a 5-year park plan done and things like that. But I think the important point to remember is that if it's designated for park outlay, it has to be for a public purpose.
Yeah.
Now, what the definition of that is and the leeway there is, and I think that if we wanted to give part of this money to private organizations, I think that's a discussion we need to kind of have and determine if that's an appropriate use of the park outlay funds according to the ordinance and the public purpose doctrine.
So it sounds like it's really more for capital items, public park capital type items.
But that would be outlined in the ordinance, correct, Tim?
The ordinance says it's for park outlay, and that would fall under what we would normally budget and use public tax money for park outlay. So, like I said, I can have some discussions and kind of clarify what that can be used for, but to me, it would be like how you would spend normal tax dollars, because it is a room tax levied by the city that they're, by ordinance, purposing for park outlay, just like they would if we would levy property tax for park outlay.
So I'll muddy the waters just a bit. So Dawn's going to run programs now, just like Mary used to. If she, let's say she ran a program out on the soccer fields, it was city run, but there was a cost to it. Or there was skating at the rec center that the city program ran. That's part of park outlay in my mind. So would those be eligible for funding? That's sort of the clarity I'm looking for, I guess.
I would say if, usually the programming, the recreational programming, things like that has a user fee. And yes, we there could be a subsidy in there for whatever the difference is. It's usually small. But the key is that it's available to all participants. It's not benefiting a single organization.
Right.
So,
right.
Like I said, I'm getting out of my wheelhouse here as far as the legalities of this. I'm just trying to I heard on TV that, you had some questions about that, but it's something that we can explore to determine exactly what is the latitude that the commission would have for utilizing these park outlay funds. And, we're happy to explore that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really just interested, if we're going to have this $300,000, we should have an understanding how we might want to go about and use those funds.
And really it comes down to, we have this 300,000 plus, what we're going to get in future years. And I think, wasn't that the whole purpose behind the park plan, is to kind of look at what our needs are throughout our park system and prioritize that, and then using these funds as well as the Pesky money, and now that's more designated towards the zoo, determining like how we're going to utilize that and what's the biggest priorities that the commission feels based on that park plan and other needs identified.
Yep. I agree. Thank you.
Real quick, Tim, before you jump off, do you know, or can you ballpark how many years it took to get the 310 or 300-ish thousand that is in that account currently, that fund?
Oh, let's see. It's usually it's right around 60,000 a year that goes into that. Now it's been accumulating for years. I just hit the history on it. Unfortunately, our new software only goes back to 2017, but in that year was 156,000, 18 was 191,000, 2000 was 198,000. So we have about, I would say, just ballparking here, 60,000 based on the room type that goes into this. But obviously, we have not been spending at that level each year, and I think we're at an opportunity here where we're okay. We have this. We have the park plan. Let's prioritize. Let's plan some needs out. We can project out. Let's do a 5-year capital improvement plan, saying, okay, the 5-year plan said this. This is what we think is a priority. Here's the cost of it. Now we know that we have 300,000 plus. Based on room tax, we can kind of estimate what we're going to have going out 5 years and develop a plan of how we're going to invest these capital funds into our park system.
Yep, makes sense. I was just curious. So suffice it to say, it's going to take basically 4 to 6 years to amass roughly that same dollar amount if we continue spending as we have in the past, in general.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess the bottom line is, as long as it benefits everybody, is what
Yeah.
park outlay can't benefit. That would be the definition I got from that.
Dean,
Yes.
Tom Real here. And I guess my 2 cents worth is, I hope I'm wrong, but, seems to be that, we have this plan. We have approximately $300,000 we'll have. And where I hope I'm wrong, it seems to be that maybe there's some people that think we got a pile of money burning a hole in the sock. And how can different groups get a hold of this? And so I think before we go and do anything like that, let's look at what really this is for, park outlay. And that's what that was for. We want to discuss, I guess, who's entitled to something or whatever, but to benefit all. Let's not start giving up, I hope, this money that could be used for park outlay for some group that wants to do something. This is going to take a lot of discussion, I guess, to do something like that. We got this plan. To have the money is there. To spend the money, that's what it's for. And then we hope to each year to rebuild that back up. And to continue this on. So I don't know, I'm getting somewhat of a bad vibe myself of what we're talking about here a little bit. And, we got the 18.75 money that's designated. Also remember the Conventions and Visitors Bureau. It's 70% out of that room tax money. So it's there's a big chunk of money for people that have laid claim into different parts of it. So that's all I'm going to say. I think that let's just look at what our plan is and go forward and spend the money on as prioritizing what we want to do.
Thank you, Tom. Anything else? Go back to Jake then. Continue your staff report.
As I said before, we officially hired Dawn to be our new recreation supervisor, and to her left, Ally Kina as a seasonal rec coordinator. So with her new position, she also got a new office. Last month, we officially moved into the Low Center. So the month of May, we were busy moving offices. We got the zoo up and running a week and a half earlier than normal. We're still continuing our tree maintenance and our landscape area maintenance. The Aquatic Center startup was our first year doing it ourselves. Last 2 years, we've had, because of the contract with Badger Pool, they came and did it. So this year was kind of a new adventure for us, and so far, knock on wood, everything's been great. Splash pads have been up and running for a week and a half now. We've been continuing to mow parks, highways, and our athletic fields. A bunch of different site restitutions for our stump grinds. And again, our continued preventive maintenance on all of our city-owned buildings. And that's pretty much our month of May.
Well, I live over near the zoo, and it seems to be really well attended this year.
Yeah.
Seems like it's pretty full every time I drive by it.
The Z-Donk.
During the middle of.
Z-Donk's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. We did finish the fox pen. We did save $6,000 by doing, I'd say, 70% of to do it ourselves. So that was a nice chunk of money that we were able to save ourselves by doing it. And obviously, if you haven't had a chance to go check out the kangaroos, they're there. So, yes, just eye contact.
Well, that brings us to the final item, which is adjourn. A motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, just signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.
Goodbye.